In this presentation, we'll talk about computer applications that we can use to help us work with virtual assistants. In other words, online contractors, online virtual assistants, what types of tools with regards to computer applications will allow us to work online with our virtual assistant. Get ready for business, online business. In prior presentations, we discussed a general business model, and then we discussed other types of things that could fit into that model, such as affiliate marketing, email marketing, and then platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and so on and so forth. Our goal here to be in the normal model in whatever it is we do well, and then thinking about these other things that we can add to that model. As we think about adding other things to the essential model, we start to think, well, that's a lot of work. Can I hire something like a virtual assistant in order to help us out with these processes? And then we talked about the hiring process, or how we could hire a virtual assistant, so the process we might want to go through in order to think about hiring a virtual assistant, with the mindset that we're going to be still focused on our core here, our core processes, and have the virtual assistants help us out with those core processes, things that we already know how to do, that we're hiring someone to kind of train in certain types of tasks that we already know how to do, as opposed to hiring someone, in this case, or the example we're giving, hiring someone that's going to consult us on how to do something, right? So we're thinking we got the system down, we got what we need to do. We're hiring someone now to help with a system and implementing it in such a way that we already know how we're going to work it. So then we talked about we could do that. We're going to hire either an employee or a contractor. I'm assuming here we're now hiring a contractor. I'm assuming we're hiring a contractor that we're going to have repeat jobs for. So now we got repeat jobs that we're going to be hiring a contractor to do certain things that we're going to need to be done all the time, right? These are going to be repetitive tasks, things that are going to continue. We're going to continue cranking out whatever we're doing, posts, and we're going to continue cranking out video files in Spanish and audio posts and podcasts and whatnot. We need people to help us out continually. So we're thinking probably something like an Upwork or another kind of contractor, in which case we will be working online with the contractor. Now, if you're working with Upwork, they will provide some resources for the communication tools and even resources to kind of track. And so will a system such as onlinejobs.ph as well. But so you can use their systems for some of these types of items as well. But just note, even if you hired someone virtually and then you were just thinking, now how am I going to work with someone online? Now I've got these tasks I need to do. I know how to do them because I've learned that. I know how to get into my applications. I know how to get into my software. I know how to make video files. I know how to convert all those files. But how am I going to get that information to someone who's not in this location? They are somewhere else. What kind of tools can I use to apply these processes? Now, remember, the processes we're thinking of are things like taking a YouTube file, video file, converting it to, say, a text file, and then making a post out of it, putting pictures in the post maybe, or something like that. Some of the processes we've talked about in the prior presentations, as well as possibly managing some of our social media accounts to help post to social media accounts. All right, so then the things we want to do then is we want to be able to organize our tasks with our assistant that's somewhere else. It's totally, on the other side of the world possibly, right? And then we all want to be able to share files. So I got to share the files with them so that they can convert them to whatever I want them to convert them to, and then be able to post them. Then we're also going to need to communicate with them somehow. How do I talk to the individual especially if they're not in the same country or something like that? Well, it might be, how we're going to communicate. We need to pay them. So how we're going to go through the payment process to pay them. And then we need to access to application passwords. In other words, if they're going to be working with things like Facebook or posting to our WordPress site, how do we give them access to those things so they can do that without giving them, possibly full access just in case something goes wrong and they mess something up or something like that? Is there some way we can limit access, or how do we manage those types of things? Okay, so the first one, we have the organized tasks. How would we organize tasks? Well, there's different softwares. I use ClickUp, and you can look at different types of software that'll basically allow you to organize tasks. And what this will do, what I typically think about this as having is you will have then overlying tasks that you can assign, and you can assign those tasks as being either open, in progress, or closed. That's what I would do for a simple kind of process. And then you can assign out these tasks within, and then you can actually assign them to a person. So we could say as long as the other person is on ClickUp, and they will be because you will invite them, you'll set up ClickUp, you'll assign a tasks, and then you'll invite someone else with their email address, and then you can assign them the task. And you can also put instructions in the task as you go. And part of those instructions could be instructional videos. So we might use our YouTube channel, or if you use whatever instructional tool creator that you make, then you can use that to make instructional videos that you can link to ClickUp as well to help them, learn the task. Once they have the task down, then they don't need to learn it anymore. Then you just need to learn to use ClickUp to manage the task. So we might look at that in a little bit more detail in a bit. Then we have the share files. How do we allow someone to share files for things like the video files and things like text files and whatnot? We're gonna have to give that to them if we're gonna have them convert that somehow. And the two typical solutions are Dropbox and OneDrive. Now, if you have Microsoft 365, I would recommend the OneDrive, because it's a little bit easier to manage. Like Dropbox, typically you have to go online and you have Dropbox and you can put your information online. But what you really want to do is go on your desktop, really, and be able to assign something that's on your desktop to somebody else so that you don't have to take it and then put it into Dropbox. I think Dropbox does have that tool, but from what I can tell, it costs more. And if you already have Office 365, then the OneDrive is already included. So I would look into using the OneDrive. So you can basically make a folder and you can basically make it on your cloud drive, which you can access basically on your computer. And then you can put the files into your cloud drive and assign them to as being accessible to somebody else, right? And then the other person can then access them on their drive, open them up. So you might want to do a little bit more research on exactly how these processes work, but just note they're fairly simple once you get them set up. So Office 365 might take you a little bit more of a learning curve to set it up, but if you get Office 365 set up, then I think it's easier because you're going to have that file actually on your computer, and you can put the information in there, assign it to somebody else, and then you can manage the folders that you want to provide to somebody else. You got to think about, okay, which ones do I want to give them access to? And I would start off making it as clean as possible. So if I just want them to convert the video files, just give them the video files. Don't give them all the other junk, that you have, and allow them to kind of learn how to do the video files because they're kind of on their own. So I would give them access to the video files on something like a OneDrive. See if you can get them set up on OneDrive first, then give them the video files, then give them something in ClickUp possibly to walk through the process that you already know, possibly with a video instructional tutorial. And then once they get that down, then you can build from there. It might be a slow process at first because, again, you're working with someone virtually. So these are the tools that you can do. But it actually works better than I would have thought after, spending a lot of time working on ground with people, to do all this stuff virtually it works pretty good. And then you got the communication. How are you going to communicate with them? Well, obviously you've got the ClickUp that you can assign the tasks to. You've got email, and then you can use the Zoom communication. So I would recommend then setting up a Zoom meeting, and you can use the cameras and whatnot, or you could just use the screen share if you need, and just show them. And that's a opportunity to show the processes, whatever the processes are, or review the processes, or review the ClickUp, tasks to see if we're all in alignment in terms of how ClickUp works and what the tasks are and how the Dropbox work, and is everything showing up in Dropbox, and do we have everything we need? So I would think, if you meet like once or twice a week to start off, and then maybe even less a little bit later, once you have the systems down, then you can just set up a meeting on Zoom. So Zoom is a virtual meeting, kind of like a Skype. You can just give them the URL and say, let's meet, whenever it's a good time. And then just review the process like once a week or something like that, and then resort back to ClickUp and email for the communication until the next meeting or something like that could work. And then how do you pay them? So we talked a little bit about this last time. Well, generally you can use PayPal, right? So PayPal works great. It's just PayPal. I mean, if you don't have experience with PayPal, set up an account. It's a little intimidating at first, but it's really easy to use, and you can pay people in different areas and really quickly. Now, if you're using Fiverr or Upwork, I believe they're going to have their own kind of system, which is probably integrated with PayPal. Yeah, it is in PayPal, I think, almost positive. And so, but it'll go through their system with the use of PayPal. So you'll still need a PayPal account, but you'll be able to integrate with them. And if you work with through those platforms, they do their best to make that as easy as possible. So you'll probably be able to pick that up once you get the PayPal account set up, and it's not too difficult. If you work with online jobs, or if you're working with someone that's in another country and you're not on one of these other platforms, then PayPal's a little bit more tricky. I think you can figure it out in terms of how you're going to pay them dollars. You're going to say, "Hey, I'm paying you dollars here," and they convert it. This online jobs, I think they have a conversion tool that even if you're not working with them, they're not involved anymore. Again, they're not, once you hire someone through them, you're not on their platform anymore, but they allow you access to their tool to pay someone that you had hired on their platform. And again, it's integrated with PayPal. So everything seems to go through PayPal, and PayPal makes payment easy so I think it's not bad. And then there's access. How do you access to applications? So then you got the issue of, well, how am I going to allow them, I can give them the video files maybe, and they can transpose them to audio files and this and that. But then I got to allow them to access and get into my WordPress site if I want them to post it. Otherwise, they have to give me the file and then I post it and whatnot. So how can I give them access to my website and this and that so that they can then post it, and possibly not give them full access or something like that? One tool you can use is called LastPass. And this is a password storage tool. We might talk about it later, just in terms of storing passwords, because you might be thinking at this point too, I have you're talking a lot of different websites. Passwords are going to be crazy. I'm going to have to log into all these websites and whatnot. Well, one tool that's commonly used is something called LastPass, which is supposed to be a secure way to store your passwords so that you have a master password, and then you could store the password. Now, so it's really good for managing your passwords. You can do more research on it. We might talk about it a little bit more later. But it's also good for hiring other people, because you can actually give access to another person to the password, but they have to click on LastPass, and it'll simply open the website without them entering the password. So they'll be able to access it with whatever the password is in LastPass without actually knowing the password. And they can, go in there from that setup. Now, LastPass is free, but you can only do that for one individual. So if you have one virtual assistant for one particular website, then you can use that, and that works. If you have multiple virtual assistants, then you might have to pay more, so you can have multiple virtual assistants that would have access with that kind of system through LastPass. But also you may not always need that system for LastPass, because a lot of the platforms have their own kind of tools to help you restrict access within their platforms. For example, if you're talking about like a WordPress, you don't really need to do the restricted thing with LastPass. You could for an added level, but you can also just give someone access to your WordPress site, which is where you put your blogs and whatnot, and give them restricted access, so they only have the ability to do certain things like edit or posting the blog, right? So you can give them different access, so that you can say, hey, you have your own account on my WordPress site, but it's limited. You can't just delete the entire account with it. You can post this and that and the other thing. YouTube actually has that now, so you can actually have someone do this. And we haven't talked too much about what would they do on YouTube. Well, they could just simply respond to all the comments on YouTube, which could take up a lot of time. And so you could give access that would be a limited access on YouTube. Udemy, you can actually do that. You can put someone on there with a different another instructor or co-instruct, but give different access rights to the course for the instructor, so that they could help you possibly upload content, and possibly help you manage, again, like the comments and whatnot and the reviews. And then Facebook has that as well. Facebook owns Instagram. So if you want them to help you post there and monitor those things, then once again, you could you can give them some kind of restricted rights, so they couldn't, like, if they got mad at you or something happened, or someone stole their access, they couldn't just delete the whole account typically, because there's going to be some kind of restricted component to it. Now, this is just an example of ClickUp. and this is one of the management tools. So I would suggest basically getting something like this. What you really want, or what I was looking for, is something fairly easy that I can just basically say, hey, here's the general tasks that we want to look into, and then be able to put something in there like a video file to say, hey, this is how you do it, and then be able to process how the process is going. So for example, here, add screenshot. So you can assign someone to it, which is nice once they're set up in it. And then you can have the progress and say, what's the progress as we go through this? What this one is in progress. If I go into it and then say it's in progress, and then once it's done, it could say review, and then you can close it, right? And then we can give content down here in terms of instructions, if necessary, with regards to instructions as well. Also note that if you're using something like a screencast software, like Screencast-O-Matic, you can actually post instructional videos to Screencast instead of your YouTube channel and put a link to the screencast so that you can have the video file, or you can post these items, you can post a video file for instructions, like this is how you do something that's really specific that you don't want to put on your YouTube channel. You can still upload it to YouTube and then put it as a restricted access so that YouTube won't put it in a general search. So again, you probably don't want to put like sensitive information like passwords and stuff in that format, but you can put something on YouTube that's just like general, like this is how you do something that you don't really want to open up to the general search, right? And you can limit the search. And then again, you can put the link down here so that they could just link to that and they can see this instructional video on how to do the step-by-step process to go through any particular task.